Hello everyone, welcome to Anime No Me, and thank you for joining us for another One Piece video. Zoro and Sanji are always at each other's throats fighting. And even though they belong to the same crew, they differ in many different ways, leading them to fight in quite a few different moments of the story of One Piece. The only thing that ever unites these two characters, aside for the love and respect of their crewmates, is of course the captain of their crew, Luffy. So in today's video, we're going to talk about how Zoro behaves when facing Sanji's attitudes, and why they live in a constant fight with each other. But before we dive into the video, if you're new to the channel, or even if you watched a bunch of our videos, we'd be absolutely honored if you'd leave us a like, because it especially helps us with that YouTube algorithm. Or even subscribe and maybe leave us a comment letting us know what you thought of the video. It really helps us out and motivates us to make more content. And if you'd like to help out the channel in a bigger way, consider sharing this video or another one of your favorites with a friend. But without further ado, let's get into this video. So my friends, Zoro and Sanji are always shown to be competing with each other and fight over the most petty of issues. And oftentimes, these fights happen at the most inopportune of moments, when they have something really important to do. But because both of them have this childishness, the fight of them always rises back up. These arguments and squabbles often force a third member of the Straw Hat crew to break them up and keep them from fighting. Now, many times it's Nami or Nico Robin who are responsible for separating these fights, because Zoro and Sanji are often at each other's throats and start trying to hit each other. Looking back throughout our story of One Piece, we can see that all of these disagreements that are in the present day go all the way back to the Arlong Park arc, because Zoro and Sanji both had very different ideas about how they would deal with Nami's betrayal. And if there wasn't already enough conflict between the two, the deal was really sealed with them officially in Little Garden, when the two competed on a hunting expedition, creating a competitive spirit between them that always makes them see an opportunity to challenge the other. Their rivalry even extends to Sanji's cooking, because Zoro rarely recognizes its quality, because usually Zoro just says the food that Sanji prepares is acceptable, while the other crew members say it's always delicious. This always makes Sanji very angry with Zoro, because the swordsman doesn't appreciate his cooking, and he disrespects him as a professional chef, which leads to a long discussion between the two characters. Zoro also has a habit of insulting Sanji when he's flirting with Nami or Robin, although all the crew members of the Straw Hats already complained to Sanji about this kind of attitude when he loses his mind around women. Both characters also have insulting nicknames they love to throw at each other. You see, Zoro almost never calls Sanji by his name, usually calling him curly eyebrows or cook or idiot cook, while Sanji often refers to Zoro as Marimo or Mosshead or some kind of swordsman. And this has really escalated to the point where Zoro now pretty much never refers to Sanji by his name. Following the time skip, when the crew returned to Sabati Archipelago, Zoro taunted Sanji because he came to the crew and the ship later, referring to him as number 7 and himself as number 1, because of course Zoro alluding to the fact that he's just better than Sanji because he arrived sooner. During their adventures on Fishman Island, Zoro came up with new and insulting nicknames for Sanji, and even during the Wano arc, Zoro often referred to Sanji as Brao Goro, while Sanji called Zoro Masjoro. However, despite their bickering and fighting and really comical rivalries, they really do have a brotherly trust and care between them that they would never ever admit to. They faithfully trust each other's potential and recognize the great strength that the other possesses. In fact, the two warriors understand each other better than all the other crew members, knowing each other's limits, so they know how and when each of them will win a fight or not. So many times, they will never interfere with the other's combat. Zoro's confidence in Sanji's strength and character can be seen at several times, although Sanji may never have realized it. Zoro smiled when Sanji returned to fight Jabra, one of the CP9 members during the Enies Lobby arc. When Usopp and Frankie were worried about Sunny's crew after arriving on Zou, Zoro stated that they would be fine because Sanji was with them, although he said he didn't care what happened to Sanji. Luffy even caught Zoro listening intently to Peckham's outside the door, showing that he still cared about Sanji's safety. But when Luffy said that Zoro was doing it because he cared about him, Zoro got angry, trying to avoid and even shake off the fact that he cared about Sanji. But when the two are forced to fight together against a common enemy, they are an absolutely unstoppable team, like the fight against Hamburg, Pickles, and Big Pan. And although many of the time one gets in the other way by executing some uncoordinated strike. And it's at these moments where the two start having an argument in the middle of a fight, giving their enemies the advantage to make an attack, gaining the advantage over the battle, but once they end the argument and regain control, they still manage to defeat their opponents. Whenever new bounties are ever released, Zoro is always proud that his bounty remains just a little bit larger than Sanji's. However, after Sanji's bounty became larger than his after the events in Whole Cake Island, Zoro became quite angry and threatened to fight Sanji for it. However, when Zoro's bounty became greater than Sanji's once again after the attack on Onigashima, Zoro did not hesitate to taunt Sanji about his inferior bounty, calling him number 4. During the Whole Cake Island arc, Sanji considered leaving the crew and even got into a fight with Luffy, kicking him several times while mocking his goal of becoming king of the pirates, just to get Luffy to abandon him there. Even though he hurt Luffy a lot, making Luffy and even Nami suffer because of his words, the two of them never told the other crewmates about what happened, because deep down, Luffy knew all of Sanji's words were lies. Luffy even said that Sanji could insult him all he wanted because he knew that Sanji was hurt the most by his own words, and this caused Sanji to cry once he was out of Luffy's sight. Luffy knew that Sanji was a very kind person, and he really had no intention of hurting him. You see, the captain of the Straw Hats preferred not to comment on his crew, so Zoro never may have learned about this. Because if Zoro had been present at that moment, he might have even tried to fight Sanji, prevent him from further offending his captain's goals. Because even though Zoro is Sanji's friend and respects him, Zoro would never understand the real reasons that led Sanji to say those words. I mean, not even Nami, who has a great intimacy with Sanji, didn't understand what the cook was going through. Only Luffy was able to understand Sanji's heart, seeing how sad and hurt he was when he said those words, in addition to the strikes that he had dealt to Luffy, which were hurting himself on the inside. So Zoro would have acted in a much more instinctive way. But now that these events have gone to the past, knowing about these things that Sanji did to Luffy on Whole Cake really wouldn't make Zoro feel any angrier towards Sanji. In fact, Sanji may have actually told all the Straw Hats about his family and everything that happened on Whole Cake, making everyone understand his reasons for leaving the crew. So Zoro would know very well Sanji's reasons for hitting Luffy if he found out. And so would the other Straw Hats, and they would absolutely understand because it was something that Nami apparently understood once Sanji returned to the crew. But while Sanji was hitting Luffy, Nami watched his attitude with a very frightened expression, showing that she just didn't understand what Sanji was up to. But after Luffy started talking to Sanji, Nami seemed to understand a bit more about what was going on. So this made her keep this secret too. So even as Zoro found out at some point about this fight between Sanji and Luffy, the most he could do is just offend Sanji with one of his thousands of insults or nicknames. And just like we see happen often, this would just start another fight between these two characters, because they just can't seem to have a simple conversation without some kind of disagreement forcing some crew member to have to separate them. So as we can see, from the very beginning, these two have had a very love-hate kind of relationship, but always in a friendly and respectful way. And really, this relationship is probably never going to change, forever possessing this rivalry, which motivates them to become stronger than the other, always making the other rise to even greater heights to support their captain. And it's because of this brotherly love-hate thing that it's absolutely clear that one would sacrifice their life for the other to save them, although they'd never admit it or show this respect in front of other people because of their pride. But deep down, we know that each of them respects the other. The greatest example of this respect came about during the raid in Onigashima. After Sanji started to feel his body change from using the raid suit, he worried that he, like his siblings, would lose his humanity and become a monster and start killing. And he absolutely did not want this to happen. So he asked the only person that he knew he could trust on the crew to check him if it was necessary. And it was in that moment that he asked Zoro that if he were to ever change, or his mood changed, or he became something he shouldn't be, that Zoro were to kill him. And of course, Zoro agreed, knowing that this fear was probably one of the greatest things that Sanji could ever share with anyone else. But Zoro, for his part, also said that, well, yeah, I'll do it, but you better not change. Showing that for all their bluster and all their argument, these two truly love and respect and care about each other, even though they won't never admit it. So at the end of the day, Sanji and Zoro are really the two strongest crew members next to Luffy, and are gonna be the ones responsible for guiding Luffy to his final goal of becoming king of the pirates. In fact, they are the wings of the Pirate King, and the ones who will always protect their captains, so they always need to become strong. So along their journey of growth, each one will raise up the other by trying to put him down and just sticking in those little jabs. But in this way, as they provoke each other, it only motivates them to become stronger and earn new bounties and cause further competition throughout our story, while still having a great respect for each other. But again, they'll never admit it. But with all that said, my friends, we'd love to know what you think about it. Do you think there's ever going to be a time where Zoro and Sanji have that peace or that mutual respect? Or is it going to be more like that brotherly tough love that they're just always going to fight because they're just too hard-boiled or manly to admit it? And also, if Sanji had lost his humanity on Onigashima like he feared, you think Zoro would have actually ended his life out of love and respect? Let us know what you think in the comments below. So as we wrap up our video for the day, I want to thank you all so much for watching the video, especially staying with us all the way up to the very end. Be sure you comment on any themes or ideas that you'd like to see in future videos. And also, since you made it this far, give us a like and hit that red subscribe button before you head out to take on the rest of your day. Really hope to see you all in our next video. Let's keep sailing this giant sea together. Take care.